Good afternoon and welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange, Leadership, Tools, and Strategies. It is a wonderful day at the very tail end of June, and I hope that you are doing well. Today we are joined by our founder and president of CenterVision Leadership Foundation, none other than the amazing Hugh Ballou. We're going to jump in just a moment and start talking about the Nonprofit Excellence Workshops. Before we do that, want to do a couple things as quick points of reminder. As always, so thrilled that you're here joining us, and if you've missed any previous episode of the Nonprofit Exchange, the easy way to find them, go to hangouts.centervisionleadership.org, and you can see the archives available at that website. Want to also remind you of the opportunity to join the community. We have an amazing community that's growing of nonprofit leaders across the social benefits spectrum and across the globe. Want to invite you to come and join us at centervisionleadership.org. You can register there to become part of the community. Also want to remind you, if you haven't yet, make sure you check out the June issue of Nonprofit Performance Magazine. Our June focus is on giving for impact. And we are getting a little bit of feedback issue here. All right, sorry for just 1 second. All right, we've had some technical issues as we've gone forward today, and we're working some of those kinks out. Hugh, can you hear me?
I'm on live on my computer.
All right.
So whatever happened has gone away.
All right.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. As long as you can hear me, we are good.
I'm good, despite my age and mental condition.
All right, Hugh. So it's been a little while since we've had you on talking about things that are happening, and we're excited to bring you back into the community to expose all of our wonderful audience here to the things that you're doing. But really want to hone in on some work that you've been doing lately for CenterVision here in the Nonprofit Excellence Workshop, the Leadership Excellence Workshop. You've been crossing the country, you've been talking to nonprofit leaders in various cities, been holding these intimate workshops in which you've been building collaboration, you've been talking about some really important leadership skills, and you've been doing that from an amazing point of view. So, Hugh, if you would for just a second, would you give us kind of a broad background on why you recognized or what you recognized as the need in this for this Nonprofit Leadership Excellence Workshop?
Thank you. Todd, you know that I did serve the church for 40 years, and I served larger churches, so people thought because I was there that I was smart and could do things, so they'd ask me to come in and work with their community organization or church. And I started seeing consistent patterns, and it's what we call leadership. And leadership is a culture. Transformational leadership is a culture, like an orchestra is a culture, a high-functioning culture of very unique individuals. And in working with my local community foundation and some other nonprofits, we started putting our heads together, and the Community Foundation several years ago has said one of their initiatives is what they call capacity building. We have a really good vision, we have really good people. Somehow we're limited in our ability to execute and implement that vision and get it funded. Sure. And I think a big piece of it is around the resonance of why we are here for CenterVision Leadership Foundation. It's about creating the culture of high performance, about this collaborative sense. And so I asked people if they'd like to learn about leadership. I created this curriculum, and people went through it and have gone through it for years, and I've been fine-tuning it, upgraded it just recently. And now I've done 3 in-person workshops, and I've got 3 more scheduled for the leader of the organization, the rabbi, the pastor, the executive director, and the primary lay leader or volunteer, they call it, the board chair. So this primary stakeholder or maybe a major donor, because the organization changes when the leader changes. Yeah. So we're looking at transformational leadership as a culture of high functioning leadership. So we're going through my entire leadership curriculum in one day, and they walk out with a notebook. They walk out with a subscription to the magazine and a full year's membership in the online community. So it's not only just the content, but it's the follow-up conversation that's important. So that was a long answer, but it's instead of the title, Nonprofit Leadership Excellence Workshop is kind of boring, doesn't describe what we do. It's more like the social benefit empowerment session. I'm working on a new name for it, but that's basically what it is. I used to call rehearsals attitude adjustment. My job as the leader is for people to go out feeling better than they came in. And so with the ones so far, not only are people feeling better, energized, focused, and equipped, but there's this sense of collaboration that happens within the group, which is great.
Sure, Hugh, and I think that's one of the things that's really unique here. A lot of times when we go to these workshops, summits, seminars, whatever they are, the most we ever leave with of somebody else is maybe a business card. But we don't really have that opportunity to sit down and to dig into this. And it sounds like what you're doing here is you're creating that collaborative environment where people recognize that their point in this community is not just for their organization, but it's really how do we grow our organizations to impact our community. Is that correct?
And that's what we preach day in and day out, is the collaboration, cooperation trumps competition. And we haven't been taught, we haven't grown up in this collaborative culture in any community. So we have these isolated organizations doing similar work, when in fact, if we looked at doing it together, it would be a lot more powerful. And so some of the work in the past that I've done with individual organizations, we've now created an alliance. For instance, we did a project of building a strategy and execution for a historic house. Alexander Black, one of the founders of Blacksburg, one of the sons of the founders. And in that process, there was what we call a new architecture of engagement. People learned how to work together in a very different way. And one of the initiatives was to have a communications strategy. And we had lots of arts groups. So one of the major things that came out was one of the other nonprofits, the Community Partnership, the Blacksburg Partnership, which represents the town and the university and the business community, took that on and said, look, we've got the list, we've got the horsepower. So that collaboration has manifested in weekly sessions where the arts community gets together and they hear a presentation, they learn about something, and they have an ongoing conversation about how we do things together. So one simple thing was an outgrowth, and now we're looking at, with these people that came, we did one last week in Blacksburg, and there's people I didn't know in my own community, which is interesting because there's only 30,000 residents in Blacksburg, but people came and said, look, we ought to get together on doing a couple of things. So that's a win-win in my book.
Yeah, and I think this is such an intriguing framework. And Hugh, I know you shared you've got a handful of them that are coming up here soon. You've been in Chicago now. You've been in Blacksburg. You've been in North Carolina. Is that correct? Okay. And then you've got coming up, you said you'll be in, is it?
I'm going to be in Indianapolis, Indy.
Okay.
On July 21st at the Oasis of Hope Baptist Church in Indianapolis. And then in the following month, on the 13th of August, I will be at the historic Kersher Congregation, Israel, in downtown Philadelphia. Okay. And so the bounds are there's no boundaries or lines drawn to separate us. We're all human beings doing really good work in our community. So we come together. So we have the Baptist, we had the Community Foundation last week, we had a independent nonprofit in Chicago, we had a church in Greensboro, and now we have this synagogue in Philadelphia. So I'm really loving the diversity of the kinds of settings and the people who have bought into this.
And Hugh, one of the things you touched on briefly is the recognition in the social benefit world. We kind of all are struggling with some of the same things, whatever type of organization we are, whether we're a 501c3, a 501c6, or some variants in between there. We see a lot of these organizations and they're dealing with that same thing. And you mentioned the idea of capacity, or capacity building seems to be one of the common buzzwords that's used significantly. And now as I look at your workshop, as I look at what's happening through this, one of the things that I see is you have a very unique structure to capacity building. And you do this in part through your focus on transformational leadership, and then in part you're bringing together your 40 years plus of choral conducting and orchestra conducting, and you've kind of used some really unique cornerstones to this, if you would. Would you talk with us a little bit about kind of the four pieces that set up the nonprofit workshop itself?
Yes, and I'm doing a mini version in Grand Rapids, Michigan, at the Amway Conference Center, and for a group of, it's called the National Pastoral Musicians, the Catholic musicians. I'm doing their leadership, and we're doing the same principles. And so the first principle, the conductor knows the score. You step on the podium, you know the score in and out. You know where you're going, you know how you're going to get there, and you've worked on your skill set, and you convene the community, all of whom have their action plan in the form of notes. And so that's the foundation. What do we stand for? What's our vision, mission? What are our specific objectives? And can we communicate that? And are we the leader? Have we equipped ourselves? And number one, a leader is a person of influence. The conductor is perceived to be this dictator. Well, in fact, you got a little white stick. I don't think you can make anybody do anything, especially union musicians that are going to be out of there in 2 hours or be on overtime. So we influence people. So the first pillar is foundations. What are we about? What are our skills? And then we build the culture. The second one, I hire the best players. So you hire the best. You don't want an average oboe player. You don't want an average timpani player. You don't want an average trumpet player. You want the best. So you surround yourself with the best people. So the second pillar is relationships. Leadership, communication, funding. It's based on building and maintaining really effective relationships. Third pillar is, in music, even the best orchestras and choirs in the world rehearse for every performance. We don't do that in organizations. So it's learning to rehearse, and learning to rehearse the right notes, not the wrong notes. So the third pillar is rehearse for success. It's about systems. We got a good vision, got great goals, we got really good people, but we put good people onto a dysfunctional board, and we have boring, unproductive meetings. So I attack the meeting, how to conduct Power Pack meetings. It's attitude adjustment. It's making people understand the value and connect with their passion. And then the dysfunctional things like the search committee and the annual review and the job description. We've got these low thinking, low functioning things we've been putting in place for years, and we have to get out of this trap. The last one is the one that makes the other three work. In music, rests are there for a very specific reason. It's punctuation. It's this clarity. So that's about balance. We must be balanced spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, to be the best leader. If we're tired out, we're not any good to anybody. It's about balancing all the priorities, balancing work and life, and then being in balance ourselves so we are the best we can be. So those are the pillars. And then for each session, it turns out differently, because I ask people, what are the hot things? What are the big things you're dealing with? What question do you want to answer today? And we put them on a storyboard. And before we leave, we make sure we've addressed all of those issues. They happen in the course of the day, or they happen as we review and we pull it together. But what's happened in these events is people start saying, let's work together. And the Community Foundation here is working on an ongoing capacity building with the Leadership Institute. And so that it lifts up their work. We collaborate with them. We collaborate with everyone. So I feel really good that we've put in place something bigger than any one of us can do alone.
Sure. Hugh, as you see it, or as you've been around now the country and you've had some of these discussions, what are some of the types of questions or issues that seem to be kind of normal almost, so to speak?
I've got people in positions. One of the organizations was 40 years old. They had founding members still in the board, still doing the same jobs, and apathy has set in. What we're doing is okay. I find that the top leaders and the top organizations are always working to get this fine tuning, this ensemble piece, this extra synergy of team, and get a little bit better. And it's not about working harder or looking for perfection. It's about really achieving the fullness of the vision. And in the church, God's given us a vision to fulfill, and are we in tune with that? And are we giving our best work to it? So we tend to get into this minimalist thinking in our community organizations and in our religious organizations, which is really contrary to what we teach. And so one of the consistent things is my board is really not engaged. And as a conductor is in rehearsal and we don't get what we want, the first thing we do is look in the mirror, because what they see is what I get. And so to convince the leaders that in order to change any group culture, the leader must change, and then the culture responds to that. So we inadvertently and unknowingly create some conflict, create confusion, create the stuff because we don't want to be unkind to people, and we want people to like us. So one of the challenges is, how do we lead in a situation where we've inherited a low-forming team? How do we then bring on the high performers? How do we develop a succession plan? How do we position the vision and the objectives with our funding efforts? And how do we not waste a lot of time on a bake sale and raise $100 when if everybody had given $1, we would have a lot more money and wouldn't have spent all that time on something that really is not productive. Those are the kinds of things that come up more than once.
Yeah, it seems these are the kinds of questions that we hear a lot. I mean, whether we're talking to other people through this program or we're looking at the words that are coming in from our authors, our contributors in the magazine, there's some primary challenges that it seems over and over again. And I guess one of the big challenges is that sense of, how do we adapt? There was a book that one of the frames that the perspective is, we're now in a permanent state of whitewater. That idea that we're constantly seeing churn. So things are changing and they're moving. And the question is, are we able to keep up with that movement? And it seems that what you're talking about is, you're not talking about a one-size-fits-all or a silver bullet, but you're talking about giving people a tool set to be able to frame their own organization, to frame their own team, to frame their own leadership, to be able to fit the situation, the context that's there. Am I understanding this correctly?
You're spot on. It's tools, strategies, systems, and skills. And I overlay the work of Burns and Bass as they've defined transformational leadership. I've redefined it in the musical analogy. And I've redefined it not in academic terms, but in where the rubber hits the road, things I have done in the past that work. And there were two people in the workshop this last Friday that were from organizations that I had done work 3, 4, 5, 6 years in the past, and it has come to fruition. And so they could say, yep, people, these things work. One person I knew, one person is new in the organization and had inherited the plan and the culture that I was a part of impacting in the past. And they were able to say to the rest of this group, this is not just theory, this is stuff that works. And I felt really affirmed by that.
Yeah, I think that's a really exciting piece. And again, as you kind of laid out for us those 4 pillars, the foundations, relationships, systems, and balance, it's something I think that we can each identify with. And one of the greatest struggles that we have in the social benefit sector is oftentimes we're really well equipped for our mission. We're really well equipped for our cause, whether that's a religious organization or a social service sector position. We're passionate about it and we're really well equipped, and yet there's a lot of nuances that come with this organizational development, organizational leadership, organizational management of the nonprofit or social benefit sector that creates the struggles for us. And so I know you raised one of them, and obviously one of the things I think we tend to hear over and over again is how do we develop and how do we lead a board? The board relationship, I think, tends to be one of those really unique things. That what's the similarity that we see in the rest of life? I joke with students as they're coming out and they're preparing for interviews. I said, an interview is not like a first date. We've had those first dates and we've had those ongoing conversations. You don't typically sit down and ask some of these kinds of questions. And I think one of the struggles that we have with our boards is really the organization. We don't have the rest of our ducks in a row so that we're able to onboard in a correct way. You talk about that sense of relationships. You talk about getting the right people on the team. How do we know if we have the right person on the team? I mean, what are the kinds of tests that we have for us? And I know Andy Morikawa, who's been an advisor to Center Vision from the early days, Andy talks about kind of a process by which we see if a person's the right fit. And it's not just certainly dumping them right into the board, but it's allowing them to prove themselves over the test of time. Would you kind of maybe speak a little bit to some of the pieces that we see to building that sense of culture?
Well, and it's similar to bringing on a new staff member. And I do work with organizations on the hiring process. I had one church that was hiring 4 new staff members simultaneously. And so we were able to engage over a period of time. It's understanding the long view. What's the objectives, the plan for the church or the organization. But there's a 4-step process for bringing in a board member or a staff member. It's the same. Competency. Does that person have a competency in something? You bring a person on the board. The second one is a role. What role will they play? If they're really good at marketing, they're really good at networking, they're really good at networking with people who have money. So they have a competency in something, so that's why they're on the board. Their role is built around that competency, and their responsibility is to execute a plan around that competency to develop and implement and help the organization evaluate the marketing plans, because we got to market. Even though we're not a business, we have some business principles and processes. And the fourth one is the assimilation piece. So we want, in the first one, we look at the resume, find out who they are, what their background is. Second one, have they really connected with what we want them to do on the board? And third one, are they connected with the culture? So the third piece is an interview. Here are our guiding principles. This is how we make decisions. And a good example in a high-performing culture would be Disney, any Disney park, or any Southwest Airlines flight. Everybody in the organization understands the culture.
Yeah.
So the buy into the culture, yes, they got a skill set, but do they buy into our vision, our mission, and the culture we've created? And the fourth one is, how do we help them get up to speed? It's the assimilation, which more and more organizations don't even think about. Just come in. And we tell people, join the board, it'll be fine, you'll get it. Well, we need to prepare them, have a partner who's going to help them get up to speed and build it into the culture. And then to have a process for staff or board that it's rotation. You rotate the board a third at a time. Well, every 3 years, you got a new board, but you got the old people, the new people, and the continued people. So you've got some continuity and some past wisdom, and people can re-up maybe once, but not for 40 years. So is that the kind of thing you're looking for? There's several dimensions to getting a right fit.
Yeah, I think that's really significant to us. And I guess what we really want to dig into here as we look at this concept here today is all of us are facing challenges. And our challenges may be board, it may be onboarding a staff member, it may be funds attraction, it may be a number of different things. And really what it sounds like is through these nonprofit leadership excellence workshops that are happening across the country, folks are getting, they're digging into them. It's not we're not talking about them at the 10,000 foot level. We're talking about them specifically in their organizations, giving them tools as well as building a collaborative process, right? Building people around them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we've been taught things wrong. We've inherited systems that are low performing. And I mentioned one body of research, Burns and Bass, and transformational leadership as a style of leadership. And a musical ensemble is a good example of everybody's skilled, but they function together at a much higher level. And we as leaders don't make it happen. We as leaders create the inspiration and the space for it to happen so people can do it. They're paying attention, they're listening. The other body of research is from Murray Bowen, B-O-W-E-N, psychiatrist, who created a leadership system, Bowen Family Systems. And it integrates really well. It's not the same as transformational leadership, but it's like a 3D chess set. It gives you a whole nother dimension to the human behaviors. Yeah. And it's about us as leaders managing ourselves. So the conductor influences what happens directly. It's in real time. We as a leader, it unfolds over time. It is a response to what we do. And we're not responsible for doing everything. We are responsible for setting the bar and setting the parameters for behavior and modeling what we want to see people doing.
Sure. Now, Hugh, I know you talked about a number of things that a person that attends the workshop comes away with. You mentioned a subscription to the magazine, the 4 issues per year that we publish of Nonprofit Performance magazine. You mentioned the community. The community is really, it's an ongoing continuation of the workshops, but building it across a larger network for folks across the globe. You mentioned they come away with some physical tools that they've got from that environment. So somebody's listening here, Hugh. They're watching, they're listening, they're joining us today. How do they bring one to their locale? How do they recognize? How do they work with a partnering agency maybe in town to bring the workshop there?
That's a great question, because we want to do one in a major city every month. And all it requires is that a person be a champion and invite people. We rent the facility, we pay the cost, we bring the curriculum, we do everything. It's just we need somebody that's going to be a convener. A good convener would be a chamber of commerce, a community foundation, a university, a church that has an affinity for leadership and wants to nurture leadership in the community. And they go to nonprofitworkshop.com. I think it's com. It might be org. Nonprofit Workshop. I'll have to test that out real quick. But it takes you to the anchor page, and info@centervisionfoundation.org, centervisionfoundation.org, leads you to us, you and me, and we will respond with where is an open date. And it takes about 4 months to prep and to lay down the tracks for people to understand, because people have so many messages flying by their head. That's the whizzing sounds, whoosh, all the impressions on their brain every day from social media and email. So we need a chance for them to understand what the value is. So they go away with a full curriculum, which by itself is a $500 value. The community's for 2 years is $160 value. The magazine's $20 value. And then we have follow-up mastermind after the event, and that's another strong value. So it's at least $1,000 worth of value. And they can up to the full year at the leader level in the community, which means you have facilitated conversations live, facilitated masterminds, which is of great value. So there's several portals. There's a couple of prices that people can choose, and they can come in at a lower price and then upgrade if
Sure.
they want the higher level integrative interactive membership to the community. So that's a lot of value that we're giving people. We want people to be in conversation.
Yeah, one of the things I think a lot of folks as they hear this, they're probably thinking, well, if I'm the convener, what's my role, and how many do I need to bring to the table? What's kind of the standard for the number of people? Are you looking for a massive audience? Are you looking for an intimate audience? Are you looking for some level in between? Tell us a little bit about what kind of the framing looks like.
Chicago and Blacksburg were 13. It was in an intimate setting in a boardroom, and it was a good interactive group. The one in Greensboro was 400. And the preacher said, "Y'all come," and they came. So it was in a church, and it was a power-packed time. There's different dynamics with different size groups. So a convener would invite people. A host would help us identify the local leaders. Now, I have found that at every event, there have been entrepreneurs, business leaders, and it's the same thing. They're empowering a board, empowering staff. They're bringing people to their vision. So the principles are the same, and they've gotten a lot out of collaborating with the social benefit community. So a convener is one that helps us identify who could come, and they invite. If it's a Chamber of Commerce or community foundation, they already have constituents that are in the social benefit section or sector or church. So inviting the people and saying we're going to do something together, and it's a huge value for everyone.
Absolutely. Well, Hugh, thank you so much for sharing this with us. I think this is one of those really exciting things. There's a lot of times we don't know what we don't know, and we don't always know what's happening around us. And so if we can bring those folks to the table, if we can bring our community together throughout the social benefit sector, then there's an opportunity for us to extend a conversation to grow our impact in an organization and to be able to provide some sense of instruction and growth as we very proactively engage the opportunities in our community. And I think the fact that we've seen positive impact from your work in Greensboro, in Chicago, in Blacksburg, and the growing communities that are coming on board here, it just lets us know that this is something that does resonate with people. I know that there are sometimes these massive big workshops, and we sit and we're one of 100 or so in a room, and so maybe we don't have that direct connection with the instructor. We don't have that direct connection with the person to the right, the person to the left. But really, this is an opportunity to dig deep, and a great deal of content that's been proven and tested over the course of time. So really want to thank you for that work that you're doing. Want to encourage folks, if they haven't, to check it out. Easy way as well, if you've never, find him on Twitter at Hugh Ballou, or you can find us here at CenterVision on Twitter at SVNPO Foundation, and that's an easy way to find us as well. Always through the website, centervisionleadership.org. So want to thank you for joining us. Hugh, want to again thank you for the great work that you're doing. Encourage folks, if you haven't yet seen more by Hugh, you can always find him in each issue of the magazine. Hugh always is providing a great deal of contribution to the content that we have there. He's our publisher, or one of our co-publishers, excuse me, and always one of our contributors there as well. So Hugh, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to share with us this great content.
I'm passionate about this, and people may be viewing this in a date far past when we're recording it. This is an ongoing program, so we'll be announcing, so you go to that leadershipworkshop.org and you'll find where the next ones are. So it's an ongoing program, and we can come to your community.
Certainly, if there's not one that's scheduled for your town, let us know and we will work towards that. So thank you again for joining us for the Nonprofit Exchange, Leadership Tools and Strategies. So thrilled to, as always, be engaged with you on the deep issues impacting the social benefits sector. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.